Welcome to the Building and Energy Electrical Apprentice Safety presentation. This presentation has been developed for new electrical apprentices to make you aware of the dangers present in the electrical industry and to provide some tools to help you to work safely at all times. The electrical industry is vast in its scope and begins with the generation of electricity. It continues through transmission, distribution, and then into individual installations, which is where most of you will be working. Our aim is to educate you on how you keep yourself safe at work. Safe work practices are essential. In the electrical industry, if you always follow the work practices you are taught and don't take risks and shortcuts, you will remain safe at work. If you don't know how to do something, ask. We want to make it absolutely clear that it's the responsibility of the supervising electrician to provide effective supervision to the apprentice. It's the responsibility of the supervising electrician to make sure you know how to work safely and are working safely. Fortunately, there have been no electrical worker fatalities in Western Australia in the last 3 years. However, it is alarming that the number of reported electric shocks continues to rise. Many of these shock incidents could have been fatal had the circumstances been slightly different. However, there have been deaths of electrical workers in other states more recently. A particularly relevant example is that in the 12 months from 2015 to 16, there were 4 electrical worker fatalities in Victoria, and tragically, 3 of those were electrical apprentices. This photo shows an actual site where one of these electrical apprentices died. Building and Energy wants to do everything possible to prevent this happening to you. Every job must be made safe to work on. The isolation point of the circuits or equipment that are to be worked on must be identified. The circuit or equipment must be isolated, proven to be de-energized by testing, and then secured by a lock and danger tag at the point of isolation. It is the supervising electrician's responsibility to ensure the circuit is correctly isolated and tested. An apprentice may only isolate and test the circuit themselves during their final year of training and only under direct supervision. Throughout your apprenticeship, your supervising electrician must provide you with effective supervision and guidance on performing your work correctly and safely. Your supervising electrician must provide you with direct supervision if you are in your first year of training and there is electricity supply to the worksite, or if you are undertaking a particular work task for the first time. Direct supervision means your supervising electrician must remain on-site and in your immediate work area. Your supervising electrician must prove that the equipment you are working on is de-energized. This is a skill that you will learn during your apprenticeship. There are some basic ABCs for licensed tradespeople working in our industry. Assume nothing, believe no one, check everything. Never assume a circuit or equipment is de-energized. Do not trust anyone who tells you something is de-energized. Check it yourself. Always use a voltage tester or multimeter to test and confirm the equipment you're working on is not live. As an apprentice, you must perform these tasks under supervision. Any equipment containing electrical wiring can become live at any time if there is a fault or if someone has not done their job properly. Unexpected situations can occur when you least expect it. We always test any electrical equipment or wiring before we touch to make certain it is safe to work on. Be aware of the limitations of proximity testers. Proximity testers can provide an indication that something is live, but must never be used to prove something has been de-energized. If you have any doubts, ask questions. Say no if you need to or you are unsure. This is a domestic water pump located on a farm. Moisture entered the electrical terminals of the pump motor, which caused the frame of the pump to be live at 246 volts. A person died when he touched this water pump. Don't let this be you. Always test before you touch. Another industry basic is don't work on or near energized equipment. You may hear the saying, "don't work live," quite often in our industry. You should never work on energized circuits or equipment. But it's also very dangerous to be working near energized circuits and equipment, as the same risks apply. If you isolate a switchboard at the main switch and even remove the service fuse, you may be working on a switchboard that still contains live parts. Here we show a switchboard where the main switch is off, but there is still power to one side of the main switch, as you can see by the lit up tester. Therefore, There is still access to energised equipment at this switchboard, so the recommended action is to arrange for the network operator to temporarily disconnect from the network at the pole or service pillar to enable safe access to the switchboard. This electrician was working on a switchboard that contained energised equipment, and he did not isolate or take adequate precautions. 3 years after this incident, this electrician still does not have full use of his hand. These next few slides show details of a severe electrical incident that involved a young electrical worker who was working in the electrical switchboard compartment shown here. The isolator was turned off in this compartment. However, terminals on one side of this isolator were still live, just as we saw earlier in the other switchboard. The electrician's pliers came into contact with the energised isolator terminals, causing a large electrical explosion to occur. The arc from the explosion was the cause of the severe burns to the electrical worker. The electrical worker, his supervisor, and the employer all failed to follow the basic procedure of isolating when working in the vicinity of energised equipment. This compartment could have been isolated upstream to eliminate the hazards of working near energised equipment. The reason given for not isolating further upstream was that this would have adversely affected production. This is never an excuse to work unsafely. The results of this incident was a much greater loss of production, the cost of replacing and repairing the switchboard compartment, and the devastating ongoing effects of this injury to the young man and his family. This video demonstrates what happens when a fault is applied to a switchboard. This explosion was performed under controlled conditions to demonstrate what can happen when the rules are not followed. When you don't follow the rules, you are at risk of electric shock, arc flash burns, or even death. You should be aware that death from electric shock only takes a minor body contact with live equipment. It does not take large explosions or major body contact to kill. The difference between a fatality and a minor electric shock can just be the path current takes through the body, the position your body is in, or the materials you may be in contact with. With many electrocutions, the visible injuries are quite innocuous. There are no second chances in many electrical contact scenarios. So how do you make sure you can work safely? After testing and isolating under supervision to make sure the circuits or equipment are safe, you must lock out and tag out to ensure no one turns on the supply while you're working. Remember, apprentices must do this only under supervision. Every circuit you work on must be switched off or have the fuse cartridge removed. A lockout device must then be attached and padlocked with a completed danger tag attached. Never remove someone else's lock or tag, and never re-energise unless your supervisor instructs you to do so. These next few slides depict a recent fatality in Victoria. A 25-year-old electrical worker was repairing this air conditioner. After isolating and carrying out his repairs, he energised the air conditioner to check it was working properly. Once he confirmed the air conditioner was working, he did not isolate again before finishing internal electrical work and replacing the covers. So he continued working on this equipment while the electrical control panel was energised. This electrical worker was killed when he made contact with live terminals within the air conditioner control panel. All cables must be treated as live, not just actives. This is a photo of a socket outlet installed in a roof space for a light. An electrical apprentice had turned off the light switch, but had not turned off or locked out the circuit at the switchboard. There was a broken neutral at the socket outlet. The broken neutral was live. The apprentice did not test before touching the neutral. The 22-year-old apprentice electrician was killed. We want to make it absolutely clear that the employer and supervising electrician have responsibility to provide effective supervision to workers, in particular apprentices, to ensure that they work safely. A culture where apprentices and less experienced workers feel free to ask questions and raise concerns if they are unsure should be developed and encouraged. Building and Energy's safe working guidelines provide recommendations on the appropriate level of supervision for apprentices in different work situations. General safe working practices and information about the safety assessment test needed to obtain your electrician's training licence. We recommend you get yourself a personal copy and follow the guidance given in it throughout your training. You can download a copy of the guidelines from Building and Energy's website. So in summary, don't work on or near energised equipment. Every circuit you need to work on must be made safe by isolating and testing to prove it isn't energised. After de-energising, lock out and tag to ensure no one turns on the supply while you are working. Treat all cables as live, not just the actives. Be confident you are receiving the level of supervision required. Never forget, test before you touch. Always. And remember, never take risks and shortcuts. If you always follow the safe work practices you are taught and trained in, you will stay safe at work. Everyone deserves to go home from work safely, every day. Remember, the most important reason for making your workplace safe isn't at work at all. If you have any doubts, ask questions. Say no if you need to. Your supervisor is the best person to provide you with help and advice. You can also contact Building and Energy if you need assistance, have questions, or want support. Building and Energy is the technical and safety regulator responsible for electricity and gas safety in Western Australia. We also license electrical contractors, electricians, and electrical apprentices. Building and Energy is a new government agency formed by merging the former Energy Safety and WA Building Commission. If you have any questions, Building and Energy's contact details are on the screen. We look forward to working with you as you progress to becoming a licensed electrician. Building and Energy would like to acknowledge and thank Energy Safe Victoria for developing the apprentice safety concept, presentation, and video, and for allowing to use and share with the people of Western Australia.